Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Desser. I'm the editorial director of Knopf, and this has become my favorite event. Last time I was here, if any of you were here before, I already told you how my mom was a librarian when she worked, so I have a DNA relationship to you all. But it is just so great to be here and such a big crowd, so thank you all for coming. I'm here to introduce Julia Phillips and her first novel, Disappearing Earth, and it's an amazingly thrilling first novel for so many reasons. I fell in love with it on impact. We preempted this book in a matter of days. The book has sold all over the world. It's one of those books where everybody at Knopf feels like they are publishing the book, and I hope you guys take it under your wing in the exact same way. This book is a novel of suspense in a way, but part of the suspense is the suspense of the place. It takes place in a remote region of the world called Kamchatka in eastern Russia. And the only people who have ever heard of this novel when I talk about it, who have ever heard of this place when I talk about this, are people who played Risk. People are like, oh, I know Kamchatka from that, but I never played Risk. So this book was an introduction to this absolutely stunning, beautiful part of the world that I had never heard of. The story is set in motion by the kidnapping of two young girls. They're on a beach. They are sisters. They're young. They're 8 and 11 years old. And they are persuaded to enter the car of a man who tells them that he needs their help and he needs them. And so they get into the car and they are never seen again we don't know what's happened to them. The news of the girls' disappearance spreads, and it soon consumes everyone in this remote region of Russia. The police investigation turns up nothing. Maybe the police are corrupt. Maybe they just can't find the girls. Fear takes over, and then weeks and then months go by. But again, the book is not exactly a mystery. It's a mystery of this place, what it is, who lives there, and how it operates. What made the novel so exciting and suspenseful for me when I read it are two things. It has a ticking clock. You want to know what's happened. And it also has shifting perspectives. The book takes place over a single year, one of those books where there's a chapter each month, has a different chapter, and you go forward in each chapter into the life of a different woman of Kamchatka, and you enter their lives, you see who they are, you meet them, and then you come to see, as part of the thrill of the book, how they are connected loosely or otherwise to the sisters who have disappeared. Along the way, you're taken to these places of amazing beauty, to the wide open spaces, the tundra of Kamchatka. It has these amazing volcanoes. Some people work in the Volcano Institute. It's a place where reindeer run wild in the wind, and it's an absolutely stunning place. And this is one of those novels that made me feel, and I think would make you feel, like you have traveled somewhere very, very far away, something I always love to do. But the panorama is also interior because you enter the inner lives of these women, what makes them tick, what they strive for, and even in Russia, what they can hope for and what they dream of. Lastly, the book is also about outsiderness, because in this region of Russia, it's a place where, after the Soviet Union collapsed, a border that was there, that was very strict, went away, and different people started to move into to this region. And what I mean by different is outsiders. I mean indigenous people, and these so-called natives are always suspected of the worst. And so these tensions, these ethnic and social tensions, are also part of what Julia has written about here, and they inform this sort of underlying theme of what happens to the girls and what is happening in this region. It just seems very relevant now when we're all looking at nationalism and community in a new way. Julia fell in love with Russia when she was a teenager. She became perhaps obsessed. After college, she got a Fulbright. She went and lived in Kamchatka, and I think it's her truly passionate engagement with this community and place that gives the novel its force and its incredible sense of place. When we sent the book out for comment to other writers, my email box started filling up really fast with comments. Simon Winchester called the book impeccably written. Tayari Jones called it an astonishing debut, and she said, Julia Phillips is at once a careful cartographer and a gorgeous storyteller. Gary Steingart called the novel a genuine masterpiece, one that is easily consumed in a feverish, stay-up-all-night bout of reading pleasure. We ran out of room in the back of the jacket for all the quotes. So this is a problem you really love to have. The pre-pub reviews, they were all starred, most anticipated lists, including in Library Journal. And I think this is a book that might also resonate with younger readers and have sort of crossover appeal. It was selected by the Junior Library Guild as well. I just this morning got a comment in my mailbox from a bookseller in Spokane, Washington, who said, with all that's going on in the world, it's good to be reminded that the people of Russia are not its government, and they could just as easily be us. I've been so lucky to get to know Julia and to immerse myself in her curiosity, her sense of fun and adventure. Her stories of Russia are great. It is such a pleasure to introduce you to Julia Phillips. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. That was an introduction that felt like a mic drop. I just want to end our day there. That was so wonderful. Thank you, Robin. I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm a daily user of the app Overdrive. I don't know if all your... So I am so grateful to this city's library systems for making my every ebook reading fantasy a reality. And I would actually really love to use the rest of my allotted time to ask why Overdrive only lets us put 10 books on hold at once, because it's not enough. And I would also like to know why all those books on hold come in simultaneously, even when I'm 7th on the list for one and I'm 700th on another. That's Becoming by Michelle. I'm just waiting on that list. I know you will have the answers to these very important questions because you are librarians, which means you have the answer to every question. However, I know I can't just be here asking you about the inner workings of libraries. I'm happy to save it for afterwards. I've come to talk with you about my debut novel, Disappearing Earth. So I started working on this book a decade ago. Growing up, like Robin said, I dreamed of becoming a novelist, but I also had this interest in Russia. So in high school, the way some of my friends got into music and went to concerts on the weekends, I got really into learning Cyrillic. And I wanted our Ukrainian chemistry teacher to start a language club at school. I was so excited. In college, I majored in English so I could fill my days with creative writing classes, and I minored in Russian so I could spend a semester in Moscow. In 2009, I decided that the best way to combine these interests would be to write a novel set in Russia. So for years, I had heard the word Kamchatka as a figure of speech. In Russian class, if you sit in the last row, the professor will say, "What are you doing out there in Kamchatka?" Like the standing room only part of the room where the coffee is, maybe that's Kamchatka. It's so far away. Kamchatka is a peninsula the size of California that juts out into the Bering Strait. No roads connected to the Russian mainland, so it's only accessible by air or sea, and it wouldn't have been accessible to us at all until 1991 because it was a Soviet military base that was closed to foreigners entirely. These days, Kamchatka is a spot for adventure tourism. It's on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so it's filled with volcanoes and geysers and seismic activity. It is much more than the farthest seat in a room. It is the spectacular edge of the world. So my plan was set, write a book on Kamchatka. I spent 2 years applying for funding to go there, and in 2011 I got lucky. Like Robin said, a fellowship came through. Finally getting to see the peninsula in person blew me away. My first day there, I went to the main city center, which is a plaza with a shipyard on your right, a big hill on your left, and this enormous bay open in front of you. And way out on the opposite shore are the lights of a nuclear submarine facility. So there are these tiny green dots. And above those are mountains that are so huge and distant that they look like rows of cut paper. They're that flat. It's dark blue, light blue, white. It's so stunning. I'm from New Jersey. I had never been in a place like that before. And again, I was lucky. People at the university, at the public library there, at these outdoor clubs started offering to show me around. But meeting that many strangers that quickly created its own challenges. In this new context, I didn't know what was hospitality and what was predation. Only a couple of weeks into my time there, this one guy fixated on me. So He's 20 years older, married, and he works at a warehouse at the city's port. And he was nice in a way that felt too nice, calling me every day, bringing food over to my apartment, showing up everywhere. So one evening, this guy says, "Hey, let me drive you around so you can see the sights." And I said, "Sure." He picks me up after sunset, and he ends up parking at the city center, the same place, this gorgeous place I'd gone to my first day. We walk down together to the bay, and then he says, "Come on," and he walks to the left behind this big hill on this path, and I follow. The path is rocky. There's the sheer face of the hill on one side of us and the flat water of the bay on the other, and the path is getting narrower, and the plaza isn't visible behind us anymore. And there's no one else around, and it's dark. I'm walking behind him, I'm looking at his back, and I think, oh, I'm about to get hurt. I did not get hurt. He did not murder me. Lucky, yes, I was ready to go. Lucky again, lucky a third time. Actually, after a minute, we sat down on those rocks, and the nuclear lights were twinkling way across the water, and we talked about movies. The evening turned out to be absolutely benign. And later, this guy actually became one of my best friends on Kamchatka. He was just really enthusiastic. All that enthusiasm was just enthusiasm. He was really excited to have a new person to show the peninsula to. But I will never forget that walk down that path. The narrow line between safety and horror. The perception of exactly how vulnerable you are. The person you're with is bigger, stronger, a local, a citizen, well-connected, in control. If he chooses to hurt you, what do you do? What can you do? How, under this threat, will you live? And I think we have all walked that line. It is the experience of women in a patriarchy, the poor in a society obsessed with wealth, indigenous communities in a colonized country, and those made outsiders in a nationalist state. It is Russian, and it is very American. It is the international experience of being at risk and of knowing at any moment things can go wrong. Disappearing Earth is rooted in such a moment. It opens with two young sisters who go missing from that very shoreline, who trust a stranger and whose luck turns. Over the course of a year on Kamchatka, we come to know the detective on their case, the witness to their abduction, the mother who's waiting for them to come home. Every one of those people grapples with their own power or powerlessness, their fear, their fury, their complicity, and their desire to regain control. Where their individual experiences come together is where we find the clues to solve the sisters' mystery. Because this novel is about violence and loss, but it's also about finding answers. It's about these dreadful paths that we walk, but also the connections that might surprise us at the path's end. The risk is enormous, the danger is real, and yet there's hope. Someone may hurt us, but community can save us. We can come together to save ourselves. I hope that search for connections resonates with you because you're librarians and you know how to join together to get answers, right? Even when it comes to the hold limit on the Overdrive app, you know. You know. You are the researchers, the investigators, the readers, and the deep thinkers. You are the ones who find what we're all looking for. It is the dream of my life to put this book in your hands. Thank you.